Hello, welcome to Spread Book Joy. Today I'm going to do a reading ramble. I'm going to try and do it without editing, and I'm going to try and keep it under 15 minutes. So 2 massive challenges for me today. I'm not even going to edit in titles possibly today, although I do like my titles. So if you've never been here before, I'm Jack, and I love chatting about books, and I chat about children's books a lot because I'm also a primary school teacher. But today I'm just going to talk about what I've been reading, some things I've been thinking about reading, and some things I'm planning on reading. And I don't like to set plans too much. I'm going to talk about that a little bit when I get around to my reading plans. But what have I read since the last reading ramble? A few things. First thing, and I don't know if this is the order I finished them in, I've just written them down in my book. I finished a book called A Town Called Solace by Mary Lawson. It was longlisted for the Booker last year, and I really enjoyed it. Never read her before. It was kind of a slight mystery to it, but it wasn't a mystery book. Set in a small town in Canada in the 1970s, and it's told from the perspective of 3 people whose lives are intertwined. There's a young girl called Clara whose older sister has gone missing. So there's a mystery in the day of that sort of 1972 timeline, and then her neighbour Mrs. Orchard has gone into hospital, so she's trying to look after her cat. So we have Clara's perspective, we have Mrs. Orchard's perspective, and then we have the perspective of someone called Liam who moves into the neighbourhood. And I'm not going to say any more than that because it'll be spoilers, but I really enjoyed it. I'm going to try and read more Mary Lawson. I also read a non-fiction book called Breath by James Nestor. I read this I haven't got any of these books to hand because they're all ebooks or audiobooks, and James Nestor investigated how we have forgotten to breathe properly. The Lost Art of Breathing, I think is the subtitle. Really interesting and fascinating book. He researched the impact that mouth breathing has on people, and the things that we can do to try and improve the way we breathe, and the art of meditation and various other practices that go on in other parts of the world and throughout history, and things that we've forgotten to do. And yeah, it was a really interesting read, and I've taken some things away from it, but some things I was still kind of, I'm not sure how I would manage that, but there were really key takeaways from that book, one of which is we don't breathe through our noses enough. So yeah, really interesting. And then I finally finished The Parable of the Talents, which I DNF'd for now back in January because it was just too depressing. It's the second book in the Octavia E. Butler duology, which started with Parable of the Sower, and it's a dystopian fiction, a classic dystopian fiction. She's an amazing writer. I'm definitely going to read more by Butler. She's wonderful. I love Parable of the Sower. I didn't quite love Parable of the Talents. I finished it. I enjoyed it. I'm not sure I liked or agreed with the ending of it, and I can't talk about what I didn't like without spoiling it, but it was a solid read. I just didn't love it the way I love Parable of the Sower, and I found it a bit depressing. It's a bit obvious to say I found a dystopian book depressing, but this was exceptionally so. Anne of Avonlea, I finished that as part of the Anne Along. I've talked about this at length. It's a group I'm taking part in for the whole year, one Anne of Green Gables book per month. And Anne of Avonlea, I read once when I was a child and remembered parts of it, but not all of it. Just as delightful as Anne of Green Gables, though never quite as good as Anne of Green Gables, obviously. But this month coming up, we're going to be going on to Anne of the Island, which I'll talk about in a moment. I also read The Last Bear by Hannah Gold, which is delightful middle grade, and I'll put a link to my recent review for that. So what am I currently reading still? Well, I am about 5 pages away from the end of Something Wicked This Way Comes by Bradbury, which is a fantastic book and classic science fiction book, and I'm loving it. Science fiction? No, it's not science fiction, is it? This is why I edit. So it's actually classic horror, really. Ray Bradbury is a sci-fi writer though, and it does say it's a fantasy masterwork on the back here. It's all very weird, but I would classify this as a horror book, really. And you can see the influence of Bradbury over people like Gaiman and King. About 5 or 6 pages from the end. I really want to get to the end of it. But this was gifted to me by my friend Paula over on Instagram, who is on Instagram as Old Bookish Woman. She's very, very good. You go and look at her. If you like fantasy, if you like unusual, independently published books, Paula reads quite a lot of those. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Quite surprised by how poetic his writing is. I've never read Bradbury before, and he's one of the authors I've always wanted to read. So glad to have read that. Nearly finished it. Haven't got full thoughts on it yet because I like to digest my books before I give my full thoughts. I'm also still listening to, but I'm going to DNF for now, Pandora's Jar by Natalie Hynes, which is a selection of her sort of, she does, each chapter is based on a different woman from classical Greek mythology, and how we have been taught to perceive these women through all of the retellings, because every myth is a retelling, because these were all oral tradition stories. So everything we have, even from, you know, the oldest written records of these myths, are retellings. So how these women have been perceived and changed through time, through the different retellings, quite often very unfairly, and also sometimes they're very two-dimensional characters, but they didn't always start out that way. So it's really interesting. The chapter on Medusa has been particularly enlightening, and I really enjoyed that. So what else? Oh, The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. I started this purely because I wanted to reread The Eye of the World, and I didn't want to reread it now because it's a huge book, but I've just been sucked into it because I've read it twice before. I watched the Wheel of Time series. Say no more. I mean, I'm going to carry on watching it in hopes that it gets better. I didn't particularly think it was that good, but the first book of the Wheel of Time, it made me itch to pick it up again. The new Audible version, which is read by Rosamund Pike, came out. Now, I don't like the people who did the original audiobooks. I think they're very robotic. I know people they're worshipped in the fantasy community online by people. Kate Redding and Michael Kramer, I think it is, or Kate Kramer and Michael Redding. I can't remember which way around it is. But I find their voices just too robotic and just not pleasant to listen to. But Rosamund Pike has just done the Wheel of Time. I thought, I'll just put it on and have a little listen. I've been sucked straight into it. Absolutely love her reading that. It's been really kind of like a comfort read, and it's in the book that, even though I've got a million things to read at the moment, I keep turning to. And that's the other thing. I have got a million things to read at the moment. I've also got a couple of arcs that came through on NetGalley, which I'm excited about, but NetGalley arcs just make me feel so much pressure. I've got Margaret Atwood's new book, Burning Questions, which is just a collection of essays. So I'm never going to finish that in, publication date I think was yesterday. But something I do want to get finished before publication date is Hannah Gold, who wrote The Last Bear. I've just been approved for an arc of her new book, The Lost Whale, and I want to get that done before publication date because children's authors need support. They're not huge selling authors, and that's my jam on here, if you weren't aware, children's books. So yeah, lots going on. And that's the thing, isn't there a lot going on YouTube at the moment, on Booktube? It's one of the best things about joining this community for me has been the range of events and things and buddy reads and group reads, and it's just amazing. But there is a flip side to it, and that's something that I know I put on myself, and it can bring a lot of reading pressure. And actually, I know what I'm going to get in the comments here is people saying, well, I don't put pressure on myself, and I know I'm putting the pressure on me. But I get FOMO, like massive fear of missing out, particularly when there's so many good things going on. So I've had to curb things a little bit for myself, and I've had to think about the really good thing about a readathon or a read-along or anything like that that's happening is that it inspires you to pick up things that you may not have picked up or that you've been planning to but never did. So my goals this year are for reading. I've got one sort of goal, and that is to try not to have too many goals because last year I had tons of them. One of them was to read Ray Bradbury and I didn't. And when I got to the end of the year, you just feel this immense pressure. So to relieve myself of any pressure this year, I've done a number of things, and they've had a huge psychological impact on me, which has been great. One of them is I've removed any numerical reading goal from Goodreads. I actually did set a reading goal of 1 because I thought I wouldn't get my this year in books at the end of the year if I didn't have a goal, but I've been informed that that's not the case. But I set a reading goal of 1 book so that I didn't feel, pressured to read a certain amount. And until I came on today, I wasn't even aware of how many books I'd read this year because I wasn't keeping that track of numbers. I was just entering the books, which has been really healthy, right? Because I don't want to just oh no, I need to read more books because my numbers, I'm not getting close to my numbers. I don't want that anymore. The other thing I've done is I've removed time boundaries around reading for myself, because that's pressure. And one way I've done that is, this is why I've got reading rambles and I don't have a February wrap up or a March TBR or a this, that and the other. I don't want that time boundary pressure either. And I was looking at all the amazing things that are going on, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, and I thought, you know something, the point of these things is not to put pressure on people, it's for people to enjoy their reading. And so I've got to flip my mindset. I want to take part in so many of these things, but if I can't, I can't. But if I can, if my current reading fits those prompts, then I am taking part, because I'm thinking about those prompts and I'm thinking about the read along, and I am going to promote them and say what they are on here. The other thing is, even if I don't pick up books because of this readathon this month, and I'm not even going to say, because I don't want to put time boundaries on myself, if I pick up a book in the next few, because of one of these readathons, and it be at some point in the future, then that's good, right? That's got to be good. So what is going on Booktube? Loads of things. First up, middle grade March. I've got a whole video on that, and I am promoting that, and I gave myself a pile of possibilities. But there are two things I'm definitely going to read. One I'm already going to be reading because of the Anne along, and that is Anne of the Island, and that fits a number of prompts. Actually, it fits one prompt. It fits the read a book before you were published before you were born. And then the other one is The False Rose by Jakob Wegelius, and this is a library book, and I loved his first two books in this series, so I'm really pleased to get this because I'm on a book buying ban and I saw it in the library, so I snatched it up. So that's going to get read. And this also fits in with a prompt from the lovely Emily over at Novell Novels, who runs the Anne along. She's having a birthday bonanza readathon, and I'll leave the prompts in the description box below. But Anne of the Island is going to fit one of her prompts for me, which is read a book, a childhood favourite. Now, Anne of the Island I've never read before, but Anne Shirley is certainly a childhood favourite. So that's going to go down as I'm saying, that's how I'm interpreting that. The False Rose is also going to be on there because it was read a book by a favourite author, and I love Jakob Wegelius. I've only read 2 of his books, I have to say, but I think he's, a go-to author for this series, particularly as I go forward. The other prompt from her was to read a book. One of her other prompts is to read a book that's been gifted to you, and this was a gift from my lovely friend Paula, so that fits that prompt. And there were a couple of other prompts. One was to read with a friend, and I am reading Anne of the Island with people who are now considered to be friends, but I'm hoping to do a buddy read with my friend Sally, who gifted me House on the Cerulean Sea some time ago, so I'm hoping to do that with her. The other thing, I can't remember what her other prompts are, but I'll lift them in the description box, but go and check out her video because it's lovely, and Emily's lovely, and we get to celebrate her birthday in this way. The other things that are going on is March of the Mammoths. Now, I started a mammoth and I DNF'd it for now because I'm trying to be good to myself and follow what I'm feeling. So I'm going to try and get back into War and Peace, and I'm going to do that with Miss Sandy from Miss Reads a Lot reading group. They're reading this within the month of March, the whole thing. I'm halfway through. I'm going to try and finish it within the month of March, but if I don't, I don't, and that's me being healthy and kind to myself. Also, at the moment, I don't know if I'm really in the mood for reading about war, because there's so much, I'm consuming so much about what's going on in the world at the moment. So I don't know if this is probably the healthiest choice for me at the moment, but we'll see. I do love the book, I'm reading it, I really want to get to the end of it and see what happens with all the characters, so you never know. And the other thing that's happening, which I've only recently found out about, is the Irish readathon, and being Irish, how can I not take part? Though I just don't know if I have the time at the moment, but I am going to do this. I'm going to either listen to or read, either this month or in the coming months, The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien, and I've been inspired to do that by Marilyn Meyer Mendoza, the baby boomer booktuber, whose account is amazing. I'm going to link her as well, go follow her. I love Marilyn, I love her. She is she's so insightful and she reads an amazing range of books, and yeah, her channel's always really fascinating to me. So Marilyn, you've inspired me to read The Country Girls by Edna O'Brien, and I think that's all of it. March of the Mammoths, middle grade March. I mean, it's enough to be going on with. Oh, the other thing that's happening is March Mystery Madness. Now, I'm not a huge mystery reader, though I love reading crime and mystery when I'm in the mood for it, and The False Rose is a mystery, so it kind of fits in. So let me see, are you doing anything for this month of madness, March Madness on YouTube, I'm going to call it? It's amazing, but I think we all need to try and remember to be kind to ourselves, because I've seen so many people have got these ambitious TBRs, and for me I was looking at going, oh my gosh, that's stressful, but then I remembered, who's putting the stress on? Me. Who's creating these readathons to stress people out? No one. Everyone just wants everybody to take part in their own way. And if the readathons just inspire you to read something and it's not necessarily within March, how good is that? So that's the way I'm choosing to look at it all. And after talking about the amount of readathons there are, I'm just going to make a quick announcement that I will be hosting a readathon next month. The announcement video will be out in the middle of March to give people time to think about whether they want to join in or not, and I am going to be doing it with the gorgeous and amazing Shelley Swearingen, whose channel has just recently gone exploded. She is absolutely wonderful. She's positive, delightful, she's intelligent, insightful, funny, and her videos are great. She's always talking about stuff that's really fascinating. So if you don't know Shelley Swearingen, go and look in my description box and check out her channel. That's all I'm going to say. And she hit 1,000 subs plus recently, so she's doing very, very well, and I'm really excited to be talking to her about our readathon. We're very excited about it. Last but not least, this has been organising my life. These are all my sort of current reads. I mean, I'm always got these in my current reads box because I dip in and out of these books, but I'll talk about them some other time. These are my journals, all sorts of things, and this has organised my messy desk. And this was made for me by Julie, a hungry bookworm, who's opened an Etsy shop, and I bought this. It wasn't sent to me, I bought it, so I'm promoting it because I loved it. And she's now since asked me to be a rep, so I'm very chuffed about that. But this I bought with my own money, so this is not an advert, it's just me saying I love this. It's organising my page. You can just pick out these boxes. She creates all these things to order, so I picked the colours, teal, and the size, and I wanted things to organise my paperbacks and journals, and it's perfect. Go and check her shop out. And I'm hoping that was under 15 minutes. I'm hoping I'm not going to need to edit. Fingers crossed. If you have never been here before and you're thinking about subscribing, I don't know why, but if you are, I'd be very happy if you stuck around. What are you doing for March Madness, anyone? Are you following any of these readathons? Is there a readathon going on that I have no idea about? Let me know. And hopefully I will see you all again here soon. Bye.